Hello all, we wait another 1 minute and then we will start. Hello all, we wait another 1 minute and then we will start. Well, okay, I guess we can start now. Yeah, hello everyone. Hello to and thank you to all the startup that are going to pitch, and thanks to all the viewers that you're taking the time to listen to 5 very exciting startups today. This is already the 5th edition of Icebreakers, a format where we invite community startups to pitch and also connect with other startups from the community, our partners, and various stakeholders across our network. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Selma, and I'm part of the innovation products team here at Tech Quartier. That means that I'm responsible for conducting community formats like these, but also designing accelerator programs, etc. And I will be moderating the session today, but my colleague Marie and our managing director Sebastian, will support me in doing so. And well, for now, I will give the word to Sebastian so he can tell you a little bit more why we're doing this, what Tech Quartier is all about, and yeah, why this edition is AML and fraud detection actually.
Wonderful. Thank you, Selma. Great pleasure to have you in our Icebreakers session. And as Selma explained, for us in particular in these times, it's so important that we stay connected, and digital tools are really a great relief to make these connections happen, right? The Icebreakers now in the 5th edition are really meant to bring the different community members together, not only between startups, but between our corporate partners and startups, and really share knowledge, learn from each other, and get hopefully some interesting ideas for business opportunities, for joint business opportunities. Today's session is special because for the first time we said we want to focus on a certain topic. And this topic wasn't chosen arbitrarily. It is very much aligned with a bigger project where TQ and many others from our community are involved. It's the financial big data cluster. For those who haven't heard about it, it's an initiative by a larger consortium of corporate partners, research institutions, like startups and also Tech Quartier. And the idea is like on a German and like in the midterm, long term, also on a European level, to create a data infrastructure where different data silos, different data pools will be connected in a way that we can use machine learning, AI methods in a more effective way to solve really relevant problems. And this in support of European values and the idea or the notion of the European data sovereignty. So this also means the financial big data cluster is supposed to be embedded in the Gaia X initiative on the European level to really push this idea of data sovereignty forward and create an alternative to the digital solutions coming out of the US and China. So it's it's an important endeavor. And at the moment, we are just finalizing the full proposal, the full-fledged proposal for end of the week. And we hope then that we going to get also support from the federal ministry, where we have been now like really working hard for getting some additional support to really push this forward. And as part of pushing this project forward, we want to do it in an open way. We want to invite over the next couple of months to certain topics like, for example, AML and fraud detection today. In maybe the next sessions, sustainable finance topics, supply chain finance topics, market integrity topics, which are all part of the financial big data cluster use cases we want to elaborate and analyze in more detail. So really open it up and give our community, new startups, new partners, the opportunity to connect and also use the stage to present their ideas. So today it's like the first use case we want to discuss, and therefore thanks a lot for your time. Hawk AI, Spotix, as 2 of the 5 startups are already involved, and perhaps they have a couple of seconds to also tell us from their perspective how they want to or how they see the opportunities for their startup. So very much looking forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, for the introduction and the importance of this topic. So yeah, we want to use Icebreakers as a platform to also present our projects where we want to work together with startups, but we also want to use it as a platform for our partners. We're actually having Jens from IBM here, who also wants to say a couple of words how they can actually also support you guys with what they are doing.
So hi, thank you very much for introduction, Selma. So first I logged into the wrong Icebreaker session that has already expired. So I'm very happy to be in the right one now. So yeah, welcome team. Thank you, Sebastian, for the introduction, and also for all of you for this pitching session. So where we can help is with our cloud infrastructure, with experts, with a lot of APIs that are exciting for you, potentially with artificial intelligence, with also quantum computing in our pocket. So these are all the kind of technologies that we can provide to you in order to develop solutions that contribute to the financial big data cluster, where I think this is a very exciting project for the future. On one of the most exciting locations in Europe, which is Frankfurt, with our federal bank, European Central Bank, and all the things that are currently happening in the financial industry. And I think one of the major challenges in that industry are compliance and regulatory considerations, and also the platform idea behind that. So we are very happy to help you with technical enablement and with also free of charge cloud infrastructure that we can provide to you for up to 120K per anno. So if you're interested in that one, please feel free to get back to me on that. Thank you, Selma.
Selma, perhaps like one additional remark.
Yep.
As we are recording the session today, we're going to be able to also distribute your pitches to our partners. Not everybody could attend today. As I said, many are involved in finalizing the last bits and pieces of the proposal, but this is actually already a network of more than 30 companies, and we'll be very happy to forward the pitches. So I think these are relevant 5 minutes for you.
Yeah, great, amazing. We're in time, so we will start with the pitches in a minute. So for everyone who's not super familiar with the format, every startup will have 5 minutes to pitch and another 5 minutes where you can actually ask them anything you want to. Hawkeye and SpotX will additionally talk about their experience and their expectations with FBDC. And after the session, you will all receive a contact form where you can specify whom you want to meet, actually from the startups or even someone else. And I will I will do the introduction beginning of next week. So yeah, we will actually start with Paulina von Hawk AI, if that's fine with you. I will also post the pitching order now in the chat. So Paulina, the stage is yours.
So hello everyone. You should now see my screen. Give me a second to bring the presentation up. So we should be ready to go. Are you seeing? You probably see the presentation in presenter mode, or? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the presenters mode, yeah.
Present. If you go to display settings, you can flip it around.
Okay, let me quickly do that again. Oh, we do it like this.
Very good.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you very much for having us. I'm Paulina from Hawkeye, and thanks for TechQuarty for organizing and for the great introductions. So I'm business development manager here in Hawkeye, and normally we start our presentation with the problem of anti-money laundering and counter-financing terrorism. But I just quickly want to very quickly go through this because I think the most people here on the call are aware of the problem. And so just our view of the things. In banks and financial institutions and also payment institutions, complying to the AML regulations are a huge expense because it's currently done very manually, and this drives labor costs. On the other side, as we saw in the past, it's also a huge risk for the reputation of banks and financial institutions. And for us, the reason for that is relatively simple. AML is increasingly a challenge of data, and current systems are unable to cope with such huge amounts of data. So what do we do at Hawkeye? Hawkeye is an analysis and monitoring platform for financial institutions and banks and payment institutions, as I said before. And we are addressing the challenges of AML and counter-financing terrorism. We are doing this more accurately, detecting the crimes earlier and at lower costs. How we are doing this? We are taking AI and machine learning on top of the very classical AML rules that are currently in use in a bank. And in addition to that, we make a difference through information sharing and pattern detection across multiple institutions. But I will go in more detail shortly. So here you can see what we're all about. So I first want to start with the artificial intelligence. We are not the crazy AI startup, so to say. We didn't reinvent the wheel of anti-money laundering, so to say, because with most of our clients, we start with very classical AML and sanction rules. This is because it's still a highly regulated topic. So we first start with the very basics, and then at a later stage add artificial intelligence on this. This helps on the one hand to reduce false positives, where we have many banks and very huge difficulties with just a too high amount of false positives. And on the other hand, the AI also helps us to find new patterns of crime and find anomalies in the behavior of their own clients. So these are the two sides, but we are not having any unexplained AI. We're no black box. We're using very traditional rules, and then on top laying a very explained layer of artificial intelligence and machine learning. We do all this in the true sense of a platform. So this means our case manager, where all the cases are coming together, is a platform for AML in the financial institution. So currently we have a situation that often you need to switch systems if we're working on a case. So we're pouring all that information in one central place, and also adding external partners of ours, so the investigation gets much easier. We are doing this based on a very strong processing core. My two founders come previously from the payment processing, so everything there is real time and highly scalable. So everything here is also highly scalable, real time in the cloud. So I quickly also want to spend a little bit more time on our platform thinking, because that's also relevant in the financial big data cluster, as you heard before. We are not only a platform internally in every financial institution, we also a platform for multiple financial institutions. This means we truly believe that it takes a network to defeat a network. Currently, each bank is trying to fight money laundering on their own. And on the other hand, criminals are very well connected, and there are a true network. So we actually enable banks to share anomalies and networks while complying with strictest data protection laws. And so we have a real chance in so to say, in catching the criminals. And with using their eyes and using customer profile and network analysis, you can do a lot more if you do it just not only in one bank, and do it across multiple banks. So and to wrap it up, and that's also the part for that we are playing in the financial big data cluster, because it's all about connecting there. It's about connecting the financial institutions. It's about getting them in the cloud. And yeah, as you heard before, it's a great initiative for us, because it's actually helping us to make possible what we are really believing in. And we have some great partners in there, and we really hope that's going to be, let's say the mission is successful on Friday, and that we then can start with piloting on this. So at the end, I hope that's gave you a very quick and short introduction about what we are here at Hawk.ai. I'm very happy to offer product demos, because I think it's often best if you have a software as a service to really show how we're working, which just doesn't fit in five minutes presentation. But just let me know, and happy to take on any questions you might have.
Thank you, Paulina.
Well, thank you a lot for the presentation. So you have two options if you have questions to Paulina or about Hawk.ai. So you can type the questions into the chat if you're shy, or you can also simply unmute yourself if you have any questions and ask her directly. So
don't be shy. No one will bite. It's virtually.
Hi, this is Marco from Zurich. So my question, what is very interesting, is that you try to build up a kind of ecosystem approach, that you share rules and that you train the systems over time by having the intelligence of all the participants. However, how do you do the orchestration? It's not that simple, you know. You might have different versions which are in use at the different client sites, and it's quite tricky to do that kind of release management to get that stuff really go into all the systems at the same time. Or do you have a central approach where the logic is and everybody is working against a central logic?
So it's actually not a central logic. It's the logic that every bank on its own has its own rule set, and then as you also said, it's every bank also have different risk approaches. They have different rules, and they're just operating differently. So every bank on their own have their own base layer, so to say. And what we then just do is, we also not sharing rules or anything that's very specific on the bank. What we share, so to say, if you take a money mule, that's mostly the most common thing. So someone is laundering money through a money mule. So for example, the thing you could share is that you saw the same pattern in another bank. So it's more about sharing insights about patterns and anomalies you see at one bank with another bank, instead of really sharing their rules, because their rules and their own risk approach is very unique to the bank or financial institutions we are talking about. I hope that answers the question a little bit, Marco.
Thanks.
Well, we have questions from Charles.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's from Profus Technologies. He has two questions. The first is, what role might graph databases play in the space? For example, Neo4j.
I'm probably not sure if I'm getting the question totally right, but what I can say is that for the artificial intelligence we are using and the machine learning, that's so visualizations and graph databases are very, very important, because the network analysis we are doing, also the customer profiling we are doing, is based on that, but I'm not 100% sure, Charles, if I'm getting it right. But happy to also discuss that later in person. And if my knowledge isn't enough, happy to reach out to my tech guys.
So, okay, then one more question you can quickly answer. How important are visualizations for explaining the anomalies or networks?
That's what I also just tried to answer. I think it's very important, because the visualization also, you need to think of the person investigating the case, which helps a lot to understand what you're dealing with, instead of looking at accounts. And so I think visualization, especially for networks and also anomalies, is very important, and we're using a lot of it in our case manager, because it's just you just see network analysis and you can understand what it's all about, the whole case, who is the money mule and who's laundering money where. You can just easily see in a visualization, instead of IBANs and flows of money, so to say.
Perfect. Time's up. Charles, I hope your questions were answered. If not, you will all have the possibility afterwards to specify in the contact form that you want to discuss further details with Paulina together. So great.
Happy to provide more information if you need to, or a product demo. Thank you very much.
We are moving forward with the second startup. Hardesh from Radikali will now present. The stage is yours.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having us today. So my name is Hardesh. We are from Radical I. It's actually short for Radical Intelligence. Everyone gets it wrong. Anyways, thank you for having us. Let me just share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen clearly. And if so, let me just get started. So welcome, everyone. So today, we're going to talk to you about regulations. I guess everyone is talking to you about regulations and compliance in general. What we do is not specific to AML or fraud. It's actually a bit broader. In fact, I would say it's the start of every AML program. It's also the end of every AML program. So we're going to talk to you about regulations. And our real premise and the real solution that we're delivering to the market is to make it easier for compliance teams and financial services to get regulations right. So quick introduction. We are a Singaporean startup, and I'm speaking to you from Singapore. We are venture-backed, the seed stage, closed our seed round in June of last year, and we're also backed by the Singaporean government. Today, we're a team of 10, and that's me and my co-founder. I'm a former lawyer and ex-compliance professional. Spent close to 10 years in compliance in financial services, and my co-founder is basically a data scientist who's also spent 5 years before joining up with me to start this. So just to start off for today's session and give you a quick sense of what it is that we're doing, I'm going to talk to you about regulations, and I'm going to take you through a very quick example. So if you were asked today as to how you would go about implementing the GDPR, assuming that it was coming to effect in 3 months from now, aside from freaking out, most of the steps that you would take would include the following, right? So this is compliance 101 for most of you. So firstly, you got to find all the relevant information, read the regulation, find all related information around it, and you'll probably be using Google, or you'll be checking in with your peers in other industries. When you get the information, what you'll be doing is you're trying to then assess how it impacts your business. So which policies, which processes, which functions, which business units are impacted. All that is done manually today. So someone is doing this, trying to figure out manually how it impacts their business. This takes time and is a nightmare for compliance professionals. Next, obviously, you're going to implement an action plan and then implement this. Everyone's using emails and Excel spreadsheets to this day, so it's a highly inefficient process. This alone can take weeks. And once you've implemented the GDPR, as some of you may know, your work doesn't stop there as a compliance professional. You have to go on, and on an ongoing basis, you've got to keep testing and ensuring that your policies or your other controls internally are working effectively, right? And if they don't, there's a risk for the business. That means that the regulators come calling and they do an audit, you might fall foul, which means there could be fines for your business. So the question is, what if you had to do this for your business for hundreds of regulations? For example, if you're a big bank, if you're regulated across multiple jurisdictions, right? Is it reasonable to be doing this with only Excel, email, and Google with a small team? So the question that we really want to ask folks is if this is the smartest way to be managing risk. So if I had to break down everything that I shared with you into 3 main points, every compliance team's pain is as follows, right? How do I track and identify key regulatory developments proactively? How do I then quickly assess the impact on my business? And then how do I then comply efficiently and monitor compliance on an ongoing basis? So these are the questions we're trying to help solve for compliance professionals. And just to give you a bit more perspective, today's landscape is as follows, right? So regulations globally are increasing in pace and complexity. The cost of non-compliance is catastrophic, as you know. Now, the cost of complying is also increasing, with some estimates going up to 10% of annual revenues for the largest institutions. Now, the burden of compliance teams without the right tools is becoming unsustainable, and we're also seeing an increasing imposition of personal liability on senior management. So the equation really that we have been trying to solve is, if compliance programs for all financial institutions begin and end with regulations, and if there's a dire need for compliance teams to improve productivity, what is the solution? And our answer is basically to build a digital assistant, which we call Mika. So with Mika, I'll show you how you can implement regulations very quickly, okay, using the same example. So firstly, with Mika, you get automatically notified of new regulations. And then Mika also tells you which of your policies and your processes are impacted. We're now extending this to let you know which of your business units, etc., are impacted as well. And then you can also check how compliant you are with our checklist that you can build on Mika. Finally, you can build an action plan and collaborate with anyone, anywhere with our solution as well. So the first 2 steps are instant, and the next 2 steps takes about 1 day, right? And on an ongoing basis, you can also monitor compliance centrally, and most importantly, you can do this remotely because we're living in a post-COVID world with no clear end in sight. So whether it's hundreds or tens or hundreds of regulations, it's easy to get regulations right with Mika. And the goal is to help compliance teams do more meaningful work as opposed to administratively heavy work, right? And obviously to help them manage risk intelligently as well. Our solutions fall into 3 main buckets. So it's tracking, understanding, and managing regulations. So just to give you a bit more perspective, when it comes to tracking, today we are tracking over 90 different legal and regulatory sources across Asia, Europe, and Middle East. We let you personalize your regulatory feeds. We have our own Google for regulations on our platform. We also now integrate artificial intelligence to let you know which of your internal policies, your processes, which systems, functions, products are impacted by regulations, and it's all done instantaneously. We can also do a gap analysis for you. We can show you key topics and also show you similar regulatory documents. We've also just rolled out translations. So for our friends in Singapore and in Asia who are not very good in French or German, we help them translate regulations into English. And finally, when it comes to workflow solutions, we make it easy with our smart spreadsheets feature for folks to collaborate, whether it's building checklists, whether it's performing compliance reviews, whether it's creating action plans, or whether it's just building a regulatory database of all key regulations. you can do all that and more with one solution. And that's the value of Mika. So the biggest result we give compliance teams is to provide them with a greater oversight, insights, and control over their key compliance risks. So if you would like a demo, or if you know anyone who would like a demo, please send them our way. We'd be happy to indulge them. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, you exceeded a little bit your pitching time, but I think that's fine. So anyone from the viewers or the other startups, do you have questions?
One question from my side, is this a SaaS-based solution running in the cloud?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
One additional question from my side, is it then, do you offer the product itself for the assessment and also consulting services afterwards, so that customers are able to fulfill the compliance requirements, or is this then basically done by other entities within companies?
Yeah, so we don't offer consulting, we're a pure tech play. Our goal really is to offer the SaaS solution. And one thing that we're trying to do is explore how we can work with major consultancies, the KPMGs, the EYs. There's a use case for them as well, obviously, for them to use this internally and to service their clients, right? But the goal really is to reduce the spend and reliance on external advisors, right? So it becomes much more efficient to do all this in-house. And if you really need expert advice, that's when you go external, right?
Okay, right. I have a question. Obviously, every company has to deal with regulations, but for the current stage of your company and the product you're offering, is there like any ideal client?
Yes.
That you're targeting?
Yes. I mean, I would not want to be greedy and say every regulated institution, but from what we're seeing, we validated, or we are very close to validating the fact that we can serve everyone from a payments firm to insurance to banks and to asset managers. We're seeing the greatest interest from large banks, to be honest, particularly in this part of the world, especially during this time as well, in a post-COVID world. There's a strong focus on digital automation within compliance teams. So that's what we've been seeing recently.
So yeah, we have one last question from the viewers. Again, Charles from Profis Technologies. He's saying, I'm familiar with fund apps who takes in full portfolios and assesses regulatory compliance and trading books directly. Do you find that customers are more interested in doing their own compliance work, but using you guys to provide regulation updates?
Yeah, I think compliance, I mean, most people are quite savvy digitally these days, right? So, and what we're seeing is people want a lot of flexibility when it comes to adopting solutions. So for us, beyond providing regulatory updates and helping with impact assessments, they also want a workflow tool that's really flexible, that has multiple use cases. And now we're even seeing requests because of limited budgets to ensure that the tool has capabilities to be used and adopted by different functions beyond the compliance team as well, right? Because don't forget, compliance teams don't work in silos, they work with other functions of the business. So, you can't offer them a solution that only they can use and no one else. So that's how I would answer the question.
Great, thank you for all the insights. So we're moving forward with Shane from Elucidate.
Hi there. Thanks very much for the time and for hosting the event. So I think as a general rule, RegTech doesn't really lend itself to 5-minute pitches very well. If these problems were simple to solve, none of us would exist as entities. That said, I'm gonna use the time I hope that my connection's not too bad because I'm sort of in the middle of holidays. I'm gonna use the time here to talk a little bit about how we see this problem in the market and generally speaking, how we solve it, but not go into too much detail about how our technology works. So I'm Shane, I'm the CEO and co-founder. My background is in finance, so I was the head of compliance and risk for the FIG portfolio at Standard Chartered. Most recently, I started at Goldman. My co-founder has a more traditional startup background. He was the CTO at Crossland, based here in Berlin as well. We're based in Berlin. So let's start out by sort of asking the fundamental question, which is why, despite having spent, we usually use the 3% of revenue number, Hadesh used the 10% of revenue number, and I know that's right in some institutions. Despite spending between 3 and 10% of their revenue to manage this risk, why is it that 3 of the largest financial institutions in Germany have in the past fortnight been subject to significant findings around various financial crimes? How is this possible under the circumstances? And we think that the problem is a bit more fundamental than how the market normally positions it. The challenge is that there is no clarity or uniformity within the market as to what good actually looks like in this space. Nobody knows what the right answer is. And this is down to a couple of points. Number one, there's no standardization in the industry about how to assess financial crime risk. And number two, there's no comparability between institutions around how risk is analyzed or understood. So, if I were to draw a parallel, we're existing really in the same world that John Moody's found when he launched his credit ratings agency 100 years ago, wherein risk is navigated bilaterally in every case, and it's done on the power of relationships, and that simply doesn't work in the environment in which we operate. So the question is then, what is needed to solve that problem? And our view is that what's needed is a benchmark, a clear point of comparison between market participants. We primarily focus on financial institutions to incentivize performance, number one, to enable the assessment and monitoring of risk for one's own institution, number two, and number three, to enable counterparty risk assessment and analysis. So the way that we do this is that we take data from our users. We enable them to, so the data set that we operate with is quite comprehensive. It includes transactions, employee information, customer information, and control statistics. We model that risk and we provide clear scores back to our users, which allow them to understand their risk exposure, and indeed to anticipate where risk will emerge over time. In the same way that credit enables, so credit ratings agencies enable their users to anticipate default. That's a very high level kind of explanation of how we work. Once you move into this space though of really quantifying risk in a very clearly articulated way, the whole framework for how we manage financial crime changes. So we can begin to price financial crime and thus build in market incentives to reducing financial crime risk. We can build mechanisms to monitor our risk profile over time and to incentivize our internal stakeholders to change risk profile. So this is at a very high level, kind of how we operate, what we offer to the market. In terms of traction, we've got 3 of the top 10 US dollar clearing banks who are already using the product, either as paying subscribers or in POC. In Europe, we've got also a number of sort of the top tier European institutions who've already adopted the platform and are spreading it out through their networks. Happy to answer any questions though about the product or how we view the market.
So, thank you, Shane. Does anyone have questions, or maybe anyone from the other startups have some thoughts on the view of Elucidate? So, well, I have one question. I'm not that into deep in the regulation space, but could you maybe again talk about how you establish this benchmark to how prone you are to risk as an institution?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So the power of the benchmark really comes in how many institutions' data you've received, and the ability to assess risk based on the broader market. So in starting, we established our benchmark, or our model, let's say, based on a combination of expert opinion and machine learning. So the expert opinion side, we have a Delphi panel that consists of, for example, the former head of compliance for Citigroup, the former COO from Bank of America, a former executive committee member from Standard & Poor's, so a non-executive director from the FCA. And that group has provided us with, as well as internal knowledge that we have, has provided us with direction on assessing, I would say, the impact of risk, how bad it is if something happens. The probability of risk has been determined by data derived from the public domain. How often is a particular data attribute associated with a actual financial crime risk event? And we've taken that kind of model of impact and likelihood, and we've spread that over around 1,200 different tests that we conduct on our users' data. On that.
Oh no.
Sorry. We're able to weight the results and to provide a quantification around risk. Now, in terms of the benchmark, however, deriving that data from a range of stakeholders is essential to determine what is industry practice, and whether that industry practice is actually meeting regulatory expectation and sort of the standards of good conduct generally. To that end, we have data on around 2,500 institutions right now. The interconnected nature of finance means that you actually establish a data set pretty rapidly, seeing transactions flow from one institution to another, for example. So, 2,500 is a good starting place to build a benchmark. 20,000 is better. It'll take us a little time to get there, but we're well on our way. Given that we just launched the product in November, the adoption's been pretty quick, and I think the idea of defining a framework and using that framework to set a baseline or a benchmark, has a lot of traction, and certainly doesn't undermine or take away from the very good work that I think others are doing in the vertical, which we sit on top of that. We don't seek at this point to replace it.
Okay. Thank you very much for this detailed answer. I guess Elucidate's product solution might be also interesting for some of our partners in our networks. So yeah, so we move on with Stefan or Rupert from Spotix.
That'll be Stefan. Hello. All right, you can see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. So Spotix, what is Spotix about? We're different from a lot of other companies doing AML and fraud detection, and I mentioned both because our service serves both areas. Everybody's talking about machine learning, and what we found is that the usage of machine learning models is far less distributed in the market than the discussion might suggest. So why is that? There are two challenges. One is around the usage of machine learning. We try to catch moving targets like fraudsters, like money launderers, and that's one reason. So the training cycle for machine learning models is quite long, and sometimes far too long to react. The second thing is machine learning models are hard to comprehend, and those that can understand machine learning models are typically the guys that are data scientists, but they don't have the domain knowledge around fraud and AML. And there is another section of challenges, which is the technical deployment of machine learning models in monitoring systems. Those monitoring systems, they work in real time, and hence they are mission critical and well established. So it's hard to rip out a system that has been established and running for a long time. So that's the reason why systems are, not up to date with regards to technology. And those systems that have been running for a long time typically don't have interfaces for a machine learning model. And there is also the performance if you want to evaluate transactions for money laundering risk or fraud risk in real time. Machine learning models sometimes consist of thousands of lines of code. So what do we do about this? We combine the benefits of machine learning and business rules. So our service is basically, we provide business rules based on our customers' data to detect both fraud and money laundering. And as said, we combine the benefits. So business rules are easy to read, easy to comprehend, fast and easy to be updated. They can easily be integrated in virtually every monitoring system. With some variety, some can perform more complex rules, some can only perform rather simple rules, but we can accommodate any real-time monitoring system that might be in place, and they're cost efficient to run. We're using a machine learning software that we developed ourselves to create those business rules fully automated. So that means we automatically detect patterns and create rules with the lowest possible false positive alerts. We do those rules however or how many times the customer wants, once a month, once a week. And we had customers with fraud attacks where we do several rule sets within a day to respond to fraud attacks. And it's, as said, fully automated. So everything happens in our machine learning software, and we do it as a service. It's called architecture, the slide, but it's only to show you we do everything. So customers send us their data pseudonymized. So that means we don't need clear customer names. We run everything on our side, and we only deliver the result, which is a rule set in XML, SQL, which you can import directly into your monitoring system, or as simple as that in a PDF report. So you can type the rules actually if your system does not provide any upload of XML or SQL data. For those financial institutions, and I know there are a lot that do not want to send the data over to us, our architecture allows for the core rule discovery engine to be run on the customer side. So we would still offer the service, we would still use and work with our platform, but the actual data and the rule discovery engine sits on the customer's infrastructure. So there is no reason to send over sensitive data and no worries about GDPR. And that's what we offer. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. So I have actually one question. You are one, besides Hawkeye, you're one of the startups that participate at the financial big data cluster. Like one or two questions I would have for you is like, why have you joined this initiative, and what do you expect from this initiative?
Yeah, so why have we joined? I always ask myself, why don't banks work together in such an important topic as fraud and AML? Because fraud that hits one bank hits the next bank in a few weeks. The same with money laundering. So this is a fantastic opportunity to apply our technology on a much larger data structure. And the best thing is, we can do rule discovery on a much larger database and can share the rules discovered on this big data set with everyone. But also we can still do a rule discovery on bank A's data, and then share that rule that have been identified with other banks anonymously. So it doesn't need to, the other customer doesn't need to know that it's bank A, but he knows this pattern has been detected at another bank. So I might get hit by that same pattern within the next weeks or months or so, because that's what happens. And so that's a fantastic opportunity there. And of course, from a startup perspective, it's, we get a lot of interesting people to know, and we're part of this big thing that will make money laundering detection and fraud detection so much easier for everyone.
Great, thank you. So since we're a little tight on time, I would say that we will move on with Georg von Eperi. If you have any questions to Spotix or the team of Spotix, feel free to still write it into the chat or forward it to me. I will then connect you. Yeah, so.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Selma. Hello, also from my side. I'm George, working at Eperi. We call it 15-year-old startup near Frankfurt, and we basically take care of the most valuable asset, which is your data, and of course also the customer data you have, which is of course related to all the different functionalities and products we heard about from the other startups as well. So what do? We basically protect the data before it is going into the cloud. Of course, there are different motivations or issues when companies want to move in the cloud. We heard a lot about GDPR today. We heard a lot about data which needs to be sent to the cloud, and then maybe there are also some data breaches happening, like we heard from Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook during the last years. And also recently the Privacy Shield regulation has been struck down by the European Court, meaning that data cannot be or is not ensured that it can be securely transferred from Europe to the US. And there are a lot of US cloud providers like Microsoft or Salesforce out there, which a lot of German or also European company use. So these are a lot of different issues and hurdles for companies to move to the cloud. And basically with the Eperi solution, there is a way to protect the data and keep the ownership of the customer data within your hands and with the hands of your customers. Our basic mission is that no one can prevent the data get stolen. I mean, we saw it with big customers or big companies like Microsoft, where 44,000 passwords have been available in the cloud for whatever reason. It can happen, and that's basically why the Eperi solution offers various ways to protect the data before it is going to the cloud. One is, of course, encryption, tokenization. I will talk about that a little bit in a second, but also, of course, test data generation, which is then, for example, with credit card data, that it is still in the structure of credit cards, but at the end it is encrypted and it is not available in clear text anymore in the cloud itself. The basic setup is we as Eperi, it's called the Eperi Gateway. The product is a middleman between the cloud user and the cloud application itself. It reacts as it is usually deployed in a customer data center, but it can be also deployed in hosted by partners. For example, T-Systems is one of our biggest partners in Germany, but also hosted in the cloud on Azure, for example. So these are different ways how this can be deployed. And basically the data is then encrypted or tokenized before it is sent in the cloud. And that is basically the important part. And then the keys and the key management and all these kind of security processes are all then in the hands on the customer side, and he's full under control of it. We see it here as an example. This looks like a normal Salesforce, the global leader in the CRM space. But at the end, this is protected by Eperi, and we see in a second the difference. This would be here a user who is connected via the Eperi gateway, and he would see all the data in clear text, basically. But if we go now to the next slide, anyone external, like the cloud provider, like an external hacker who wants to have a data breach, anyone else would just see exactly this data. And the main magic here is that once users connect via the Eperi gateway, they get the allowance to see really the clear text data. They are able to use the business functionalities like search, like sorting, like analytics. We talked a lot about big data today, so also privacy preserving analytics is something that we offer for machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on. But basically anyone who is not allowed to see the data, he would exactly see that. And that is also what is stored at the end in the cloud application itself. So meaning, for example, if the US government decides due to US Cloud Act that some customer data from German customers has to be given out by Salesforce, then what Salesforce would give out is exactly here this kind of encrypted data. And basically customers don't have to worry about where the data is lying and who has access to it. Another example is, for example, Microsoft Office 365. Here you see it as an example on the email. On the left, how it looks for anyone who is using the Aperry solution, and on the right, how an external, a hacker or someone in the cloud who has no access to Aperry would see the encrypted content. We are doing that for a lot of customers, and have also a big partners across the world. IBM, Jens is also one of our partners already. We of course work together with different big companies who also already use our product for data protection, especially finance market, healthcare, and public sector. These are the main areas where big compliance and regulations are out there, and that's basically where this fits pretty good due to the regulations and the legal challenges that they have. Important last piece, we are not doing that just for certain specific clouds. We have a flexible template architecture, meaning that we can support any kind of cloud which is out there. We see a lot in the Microsoft area, SAP, Salesforce. These are, of course, the biggest cloud environments that we work with, but also some custom web applications or some data storage functionalities like Box or some others, Dropbox and so on. They are all can be supported with the templates that we have. And that basically enables some customers to move in the cloud. So what we look for is at the end here in this area, some partners and customers who are on the cloud journey, want to go in the cloud and basically have some worries about their data sovereignty, data residency, and where the data is going to. And with the Aperry solution, there's basically a way to not worry about your data anymore and be legally compliant when you move into the cloud. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Georg, for your presentation. I actually have a question. I don't know if you can answer that, but I mean, you already have some traction, and is there actually like a rate or some statistics, how much like fraud or data stealing in those companies went down after they implemented your encryption solution?
Well, with our solution itself, not the data stealing will go down, but if someone is stealing the data, then he would just get encrypted content and would not be able to use the data. So what companies are usually doing is protecting their confidential data. Usually they can decide what data they want to protect. I mean, we saw it on the Salesforce slide. Customer data is important to protect, but for example, a title of if it's a VP or a CEO, maybe it doesn't have to be protected. So that can be selected at the end. But we are not the one making sure that data don't get stolen, but we make sure that no one can use the data which could be stolen. And that's usually the biggest hurdle when chief security officers or so are involved in projects and companies want to go in the cloud, especially in these industries I talked about. And that's usually why this is done. Yeah.
So does anyone else have questions? Okay, so well, in that case, I would wrap up this edition of Icebreakers. I don't know, Sebastian or Marie, do you have something to add before I close the session?
Yeah, just saying a lot of thanks to all of you. I think these were great pitches and a lot of insights. We want to follow up. I think some of the solutions might be directly interesting or beneficial to our initiative. So let's keep this conversation going, and really looking forward to more detailed conversations in the future.
Yeah, I think the session also showed really how important standardization, comparability, but also data collaboration is to improve regulations and compliance. And yeah, so thank you again all for participating, for asking your questions. In half an hour, you will be sent out in contact form where you can specify who you want to meet, who you want to get to know, or if you have still questions, and also give feedback, what we can improve in this format. And well, in that case, I have nothing left to say besides have a great day and maybe enjoy the good weather.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.